We get through all the questions, and there's no more. We'll just save the rest of the time to feed Elle cake. All right, so let's hear the first question right here.
3 questions, one for each of you. First, you.
Yes.
Okay, can someone write their own name in the book and then die?
Can someone write their own name in the book?
Yes.
And then die?
Yes.
I would say yes. Yeah, based on those rules that I'm pretty sure that's because you know what you look like, and you've seen yourself, and you know your name. So,
yeah, it would not make for a very lengthy or exciting series to watch.
it's more of a short.
Yeah.
Second question. Lonnie, sorry about calling you by your characters' names.
No worries.
How was filming the chip scene?
Glorious.
I actually wish we did film it.
So it's funny because at the time, for those of you that aren't necessarily aware, for an anime series like DeathNote, they bring in 1 actor at a time. And so I'll go in, I'll record all of my dialogue for a few episodes, then I'll bring in the next actor, and the next actor do the same. So I'm working my way through that script, and then there's the potato chip scene. And when I saw the visual that went along with that line, I kind of snickered and laughed a little internally, but I'm a professional. So I got right back to work and kept going. It wasn't until I got invited to my first convention, after DeathNote had been released, that I realized that I was not the only one that had a nice little snicker at that line. And because of that, I've gotten so many free potato chips. So it's probably one of my favorite scenes that I've ever recorded because I'm a fan of potato chips. Sometimes I have been known to take a potato chip and eat it. Thanks for your question.
Okay. Now, what does Al like cake so much? I mean, I know who wouldn't, but like, he likes cake to the next degree. Why?
Why? The question should be, how much cake? Why not cake? Cake is cake is cake. And cake is life, and life is cake. So just eat it.
Okay.
I just got something like this now.
Why, hello there. Now, kind of similar to hers, like with the scene and everything, but what I really wanted to ask, so pretty much while in the recording booth with y'all, what line was your most favorite line in the entire series to record?
Alone can this panel be? There's a lot of lines. Favorite lines, those are always hard. Because when it's all, I always like to say, it's like asking, because we've all been voice actors for 30 years, each of us, pretty much. And it's like asking a Starbucks employee who's worked there for 30 years as a barista, do you remember which was your favorite mocha to make over the 30 years? Which was your favorite? What was the name you put on the cup? And you're like, God, I have done so many mochas. So it's hard to pick a favorite, but I think the ones that come to me are usually the lines that make me sort of connect with the character the most. It might not have been the funniest to you or the most interesting, but sometimes we have a voice ref that they'll play for us to just kind of get us in the mood and get our voices in the right place for a character. And mine for you was, humans are so interesting.
That's a good one.
Oh, I don't know. What Brian said is totally true. It's hard to pick this one. Elle had a lot of great lines. I remember, to your question, I enjoyed recording a line, and it's a pretty simple one, but it's from one of my favorite episodes, which is the one where Light and Elle first meet in person.
it's sort of the college episode where they're like in dorm together, you know, all of a sudden it's sort of like a bit of a romantic comedy for a while. And there's just this one line when they're sitting in the auditorium together at a lecture or something, and he turns to Light and says, I want to tell you, I know. And everything about the animation, it gets really kind of saturated in color and really graphic all of a sudden. I just remember that was kind of one of the first moments in recording the show that that stood out for me visually too, so that what I was like recording had this real dynamism as well, visually. I remember that moment being really cool for me.
It's sometimes difficult to pick your favorite line from a series, but not always.
Thank you so much for answering my question.
Thank you. Let's hear it. Yeah.
Originally, this question was for Alessandro, but I'm curious to hear all of your answers for it, since you're all very seasoned voice actors. And DeathNote has to me, one of the more interesting things about it is the voices of the main characters, and I'm curious what was the inspiration for developing each of the three characters' very iconic voices.
What was the inspiration for the voices of the characters?
I just, when we auditioned for the show, and I believe, I don't actually remember, it was almost 20 years ago, but I'm positive that I auditioned for other roles as well. I probably auditioned for like any of the younger kind of male voices. I would have, Matsuda, I would have auditioned for all of them. But with Elle, there was probably a very brief description and then a few lines that we had to say. And I just made a, in the moment, instinctive choice to make him extremely quiet and very articulate. You know, that he was extremely educated. And there was something about that that really fit in well with the megalomania of this guy and the cackling of that guy. You know, there was a nice sort of balance in the spectrum of voices there that made it interesting and kind of drew you in, I guess.
It's still one of my favorite auditions for a show was for DeathNote because the show had already been, finished in its entirety. So I received 1 page of dialogue, or audition script, and on 1 page there was lines from the very first episode, mild-mannered Japanese student, right down to maniacal laughter. So I could see the story arc that was happening with this character all on 1 8.5 11 piece of paper, so that was kind of cool. And for me, the voice itself was not that different from my regular everyday speaking voice, so I guess puberty was behind the, but at the bottom of the page there was maniacal laughter, and I think that's kind of what guided the character or my interpretation of the character or whatever, and I think that might have been also what got me the gig. The last thing was just like maniacal laughter. I'm like, okay guys, turn down the levels a bit, here we go. And I just went off. They're like, okay, we'll cast him, he's really crazy. Guilty as charged.
Were you familiar with the show before? Yeah, a little bit?
I was marginally familiar with the show. I knew it was already very popular in Japan, but I didn't know that much about it. Not that much.
Did I hear you say you were still going through puberty in 2008?
I'm still going through puberty as of last week.
Okay.
Sorry, I was just putting the numbers together in my mind.
I wasn't asked to even audition for me. I showed up at the studio. It was not on my list of characters to audition for. I was probably auditioning for a few older characters like Snap and stuff. But I saw a picture of you on the wall when I went in the room, and I didn't know there were demons or death gods in this thing. I thought they were just all human characters. And I asked the director, "Can I read for the creepy looking bad guy out there?" And I just remember all saying, "He's not a bad guy, but sure, just take 5 minutes, look at the sides, and he's got kind of an interesting laugh." So I just got focused around that he looked like a guy who died from smoking in bed. His face was, whizzing up. He looked like he's stuff, he would have a raspy, coughing kind of voice. And I just went with that feeling, and I tried to keep it a little humanoid Earth. Thanks.
Thanks, Sean.
Hi there. How's it going?
Here's hoping my question doesn't start a fist fight between you three, but
Oh, never. We got along too well until we're watching hockey and we have to go up against AJ's team. We don't all support the same team, so it can be rough. Go ahead.
I didn't know it fits. So if White, L, and Luke all were on Jeopardy, who would win?
All on Jeopardy. Who would win?
Probably, yeah. The correct answer is, who is Light Young?
I actually, it depends who's holding the DeathNote who would win. If I had it and, 40 minutes into the game, down goes like an L. 1 time left wins.
I think that you could be a better Alex Trebek than exactly. Thanks for the question. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello again.
So you guys have extremely iconic film laughs in the show. And I wanted to know kind of what was your personal process when you got to those scenes, and if your voices aren't too destroyed, if you could get some renditions of those laughs.
Processes of when we got to those scenes. A lot of it we do because we don't see, sometimes we see scripts in advance, but they don't send us the visuals in advance, so we know what's coming. We don't actually see the visual of what the Japanese animation looks like and what the Japanese actor had done previously. We don't know what's even going on until we get in the room. So you gotta have at least enough acting chops to figure it out on the fly. You get to watch it once and then go, okay, give it a shot and see how it works. So most of, sometimes, especially dubbing, the inspiration comes from the visual. Like what's their face doing? How maniacal did their eyes look? How loud, how crazy was the Japanese actor that did the role previous to you? So we'll feed off of all of those, and then of course just put our own vocal qualities into that. And like I said, I just knew, I was told in the audition that he had an interesting laugh, and the Japanese actors was very interesting as well. So I just went with that exhaling coughing sort of.
For me, the experience is a little bit different than really any other show that I worked on because I knew that the laugh was coming in episode 37, and I was terrified. Because I know, fan culture when it comes to anime can be the most supportive, creative, amazing group on the planet, and they can also really knock you down a peg or two very easily. So I knew that laugh was something that I was going to be judged by for the rest of my life. So I actually sourced out the last episode and watched the original Japanese probably 4 or 5 times before recording that episode. I totally cheated. And I was nervous because I'm like, technically,
It's going to be light.
but the Japanese voice actor, Mamoru Yano, had done a very iconic one. And so I wanted to be familiar enough with what he had done that I could hopefully pay homage to it, but also kind of make it my own and not just totally butcher it to the point where I would be ridiculed and, stormed out of town or whatever. So I watched it a bunch of times, so I was prepared. I even wrote some of the lines for that episode because I'm like, that's not really going to fit so well. I still went in there with notes, which I don't often do, and they kind of let me roll with it. So we recorded that laugh once, and I heard from the booth, that was great, Brad, let's move on. I was like, let me try it again. I think I can get a little bit tighter. Okay, that was great, but okay, let's do it. And then I did that probably 4 or 5 times. So I made those 4, director and engineers listen to me do that maniacal laughter a bunch of times. And what I realized is that was good for me because it's cathartic and it's free therapy and everything. But you're also just giving them opportunity to choose whatever they want. And the one that they picked is the one that has a really crazy squeak and an accidental horse whinny in the middle of it. So now, anytime anybody wants to laugh, that's what I have to try and incorporate into there. But it sounds a little something like this. never laughs, per se. I imagine that if he did laugh, it would sound something like this.
Right, guys, thank you so much for coming. My question. In an alternate universe wherein you got cast as one of each other's roles, and not the role in which you were known for today, which character would you want to play, and how would you portray them?
In an alternate universe, oh wow, it's tough. You know what, I feel like I would probably be Light's father if I wasn't cast as Ryuk. It's a great role. But Elle is a fabulous character too. I don't feel like I suit that role, but maybe in another universe, like you said, you never know. It might sound different in another universe. But Light's father is a great role, and when I watched, I felt I could relate to that character quite a bit. He's got some great juices. I definitely wouldn't pick either of these guys' characters because they were done perfectly, so I can't even picture myself doing it. That's just bag of chips for you. We're not buying dinner, man. Okay, well then I'll recast it. I'm kind of in love with the Shinigami realm. Just the look of it and the style and all that kind of stuff. So I know there's grumblings after the series that because Light uses the DeathNote that he can no longer go to heaven or hell, so maybe he ends up in a Shinigami role. So maybe that's kind of where my head is going, but it'd be cool to play a Shinigami. Very early on in the series, one of my favorite Shinigami is a silly little guy called Jealous. So that would be a cool character to play too. Yeah. I think it would have been fun because this character is like probably the opposite of Elle intellectually. To play Matsuda? Yes. So he's just in a constant state of total bewilderment and like discovery. I think that would have been fun as a total change. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Afternoon, gentlemen. Afternoon. So I am a big fan of a lesser-known anime known as Gundam Wing.
Ooh, Gundam Wing, yes.
And so I had a question for both Brad and Brian. If you could briefly talk about your experience playing some characters from that anime, and if they had any, and if that experience colored the way that you did some of the characters in DeathNote.
Yeah, because it's previous to DeathNote. All I know, and I might have talked to a number of people here about at the table today that brought up Gundam Wing. I was doing DragonBall Z at the same time, and quite a bit of it. And it is a voice trashing machine. DragonBall Z, the screaming, the fighting, the powering up. It is a real voice reference. Not the most exciting show to work on unless you have conversational scenes, which is the Memphis many of. So I was thrilled to get Zex because he was calm. Zex from Keys, also known as Milliardo. He's crafted for those who have got wing, but he was chill and calm and cool and collected and a lower register and soft spoken. So it was heaven to be able to walk in and know I could have a 2, 3, 4 hour session on that show and not be destroyed. But it did help me know that there's a lot of different ranges of things that you could do in anime because we did the crazy stuff and stuff like Monster Rancher and Dragon Ball Z. To a real political sci-fi drama like that is very different. And the range of things we got to work on at Ocean Studios in Vancouver was incredible. And that sort of opened the door to a lot of that work. Had a great time on the series and ended up on a few other Gundam series after that. Yeah, Gundam was kind of a big deal in my world. Gundam Wing was the first Gundam series that I got to work on. I worked on 5 all told, but that was the first one that they chose to release in North America, and I think it was a really smart choice because you always have like the boy band of Gundam pilots there, so everybody kind of pick their favorite, and the ones that they hate, at least they have a corresponding Gundam they can love and hate the other ones or love them all equally or what have you. So that was really one of the first anime series that hit really huge in North America at the time it came out. And because of the success of Gundam Wing, I think we've had all of the subsequent Gundam series get released here in North America as well. So it's kind of a big deal. And Kasha, for anybody that's familiar with Gundam Wing, is one of the Gundam pilots. He's the pacifist. He's the one that doesn't want to fight, but he kind of has to fight because it's a show of giant robots, and giant robots fight. But there's one particular Gundam that he attempts to pilot called the Wing Zero, which he's not mentally equipped to pilot, and so it kind of turns on him a little bit, and he goes a little ooh. So really, there's something in one of the episodes of Gundam Wing, which is kind of a precursor to Light Yagami, because I got to do my first weirdo crazy laugh, and I got to draw on that experience and just amplify it by 11 by the time we got to DeathNote. So I guess there is more comparison than I realized before just now in this moment, so thank you for that. Thank you.
I don't know, Brad, if you're allowed to say weirdo, crazy, cuckoo anymore.
Can I say one of those things? Let's talk about myself.
Thank you, that's a good question.
Hi, so I have a question about the rules of the DeathNote and how much one might use it. Could Light have theoretically written that his father was going to die after killing the man who was known as Hell?
I'm gonna have to consult the rules and like really scrutinize them. Because there's been some conversations this weekend about certain scenarios that probably could have really expedited the series. And in these conversations, we realized if we, kind of tried to trick the rules a little bit or guide them in a certain way to make them a little bit easier, it would be a very short series. And it would not be very interesting to watch, and we would not be talking about it today. So I'm sure, free will does have some kind of play in how you set up murders and whatnot. But in some of these instances, maybe there's, kind of hindrances that won't allow you to do it in that particular way. And in other scenarios, it would just be really bad for the plot line. So they just pretend that those don't exist. Or couldn't you? Well, you could, but nobody wants to watch that. That's going to be really dull and boring. It's going to be a 2-episode series. So hard to say. I'll have to really scrutinize the rules and get back to you on that particular scenario.
There's a question for you. Who wrote the rules? Nobody knows. That's a serious happening right there. Who wrote the rules? It's for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
if you were to play as a human instead of a Shinigami, how would you play it?
If I was to play Ryu as a human instead of a Shinigami, how would I play it? That's a good question. Yeah, so if he was like a death god, then maybe he was very human looking and not flying around with wings and funky jewelry. Yeah, he'd work in an apple farm, drink apple cider and apple pie. I would probably just tone down the laugh and make it more normal. I would just probably bring a little bit of the gravel out of the voice, but I would still want to add, make sure that you have a hint of eerie, a way that would allow the viewer to be a little bit unsettled by his presence. And I've got to play roles like that before, which I quite enjoy. So I don't think there would be massive changes, but just enough to probably still have you question whether he's good or bad or why he's there. But that's a good question. If he actually looked like all the rest of the people in the series, if I would have changed his vocal abilities much.
I'm now picturing him as like a bartender at a golf bar or something like that. Or maybe like a kind of like a 2-bit magician on the strip in Vegas, trying to get people to gather around and watch his like bag of tricks and things like that. That's what I'm picturing in my head now.
Gather around, everyone. I've got a special book to show you all. Who would like to provide me with a name? Any day, any day. Good question, guys.
Light is, if you were to play as a Shinigami instead of Light Yagami, how would you play him?
A little bit more carefully. I've learned a couple things from working my way through No. Because we were just talking about how light may or may not actually become a Shinigami. And given the kind of slippery slope that light went down during the course of the series, I can't see him being near as reasonable as where you close the show. So I think he's kind of like a bitter, angry, once was human, now Shinigami brat, basically. And that's probably how, like, you know, Ryu did all this because he was bored. I could see Light doing something similar because he's pissed off. And just, yeah, emotionally unstable. More emotionally unstable, I suppose. I don't know, I'll have to work on that one, yeah. Okay, all right, let's get on. Thanks a lot.
I have two questions. One, in your own opinion, without having bias about your characters, who do you think in the show was more cunning and smart?
It's more which?
Cunning and smart. Cunning would be Light, I think. Smart, like book smart, like Jeopardy smart. I think we already answered that possibly. But, you know, there's definitely a neurodivergence in L that allows him to tap into a vast amount of information and knowledge that makes him such a capable detective in most cases. And look where that got him. That's because his heart got away.
My second question is, if there was any role or any character out there that you would love to take your shot at, which character would that be?
Any character.
Any character.
Ooh, any character in the world. That's tough. It's always hard to look at if you want to pick a character that someone has already voiced. You might actually be up there signing autographs right now. So it's, that's hard, because I think even with characters that already have voices, I kind of hear them as that already. So it's not like, oh man, he's so cool to be Homer Simpson. What would I do as Homer? Like, it's just a way in my head already. Family Guy, all these roles, whether it's, some people might say, you know, like Eric Bauza, a friend of mine, and like great voice actor, you know, always wanted to be the voice of Bugs Bunny and Daffy, and he found a way to get there, hear those voices, but you're still doing, everyone's doing a Mel impression by the time you get there. So you're not creating your own, you're doing voices that's already existed and having to recreate it. So that's a really tough question. I find that hard. There's roles I'd like to play again that I've played already. I've been playing Wolverine in a number of movies as more things came along where it was Wolverine again, that would be great. Steve out there, Steve Lumbright, think the same way. If there's more Wolverine stuff, he's gonna love to do it. We've all played like Venom again in something. I've done him in the past. There's great roles that I've a chance to do that I would love to get my hands on.
I don't know. I guess I would love to play anything in the Star Wars universe, whether it was a voice or a part. I think that would be childhood wish fulfillment at the highest level for any of us, right? We grew up with that. So yeah, maybe something like that. Yeah. I agree. It is tricky to pick a specific character because you already have kind of a connotation of who's done it before, and you're like, well, I don't want to step on those toes. But I would like to play Jar Jar Binks. You could probably give it a try. I think you're alone in that. I did get to work on a show called X-Men Evolution. I got to play Nightcrawler. So the idea, and I was a big fan of Nightcrawler beforehand. So if I could have an opportunity to play Nightcrawler again, in any incarnation, like that would be really cool to me. And I don't really be stepping on my own toes, so it's kind of a huge deal. But to your kind of Star Wars point, there's a movie that I grew up idolizing. It's a Jim Henson film called Dark Crystal. And yeah, because wow, so much was constant on the crystal light. You just blew my heart. Yeah. So I remember hearing that they were going to do some kind of a reprise or something to do with that, and they did. They ended up making a Dark Crystal, like a limited series. And so I was trying to, like, I was hoping and putting out to the world that maybe I can work in some capacity on a new Dark Crystal project, and that one got delayed, postponed, and redone, whatever, and eventually came out, and it was, it wasn't following the original story. It kind of was a whole new group of Gelflings before, all that kind of stuff. So if they ever did a retelling of the Dark Crystal, to play Jen in Dark Crystal would be basically like a bucket list, event for me. That would be kind of epic and amazing. I just have to be fisted.
Wow, that echoed
Thank you all. A central theme in DeathNote that I appreciate is the exploration of power, absolute power corrupts. And thinking about that, thinking about light's transformation, wanting to see if there's any kind of real world lessons in terms of ethical governance, maybe lessons that policymakers can learn from in exploring, the themes of justice and morality and ethics within this country.
That's a very grown-up question. I'm just going to be here in the kids' table.
I just came from a highly informative panel with George Takai, and it was politically heavy, and it was really interesting. And I'm a public policy person who explores ethics in superhero.
Maybe we should have done this panel first.
I was amazed.
I mean, yes, there's so many real world, sadly, examples of absolute power leading to our own destruction. I would have hoped by now we might have learned some lessons from those, and from the myriad entertainments that also reflect that and have reflected that to us over time. But we haven't learned yet. Sadly. I don't know what to say to that. It's, I think, go ahead.
As a civilization, it seems like we'll take, one step forward and then take 2 steps back. And then take maybe 2 steps forward and get pretty proud of ourselves, and then take 3 giant steps back. And this is kind of like the ebb and flow that we've probably had since the beginning of time for the humans on this planet. And what's interesting to me, this comes up occasionally with DeathNote, is we recorded it back in 2007, 2008, something like that. And we're still talking about it today like it just came out yesterday. And that's a testament to the quality of the show and, the power it has to kind of, get people interested in it and all that stuff. But it also, because it still seems so relevant today, as it did all that time ago, it really means we haven't improved too much. Like, I wish we could be looking back on some of the morality of the show going, oh, remember when we thought, and we've gotten past that now, but no, we're still experiencing a lot of the same issues as we did in 2007, 2008. And we're making small strides forward, but we're making lateral movements that are very strange too.
I think policy and governance needs to be the product of many voices, many thoughts, many things to consider, and not the product of one person with all the power, which is really what the DeathNote is. One person's given all the power to do as they wish. And there's a few people out there in government that want all the power to do what they wish. I'm not saying necessarily just in this country, but around the world that exists. And it's not a place that I don't think is a good place to be. You need all these voices to be a part of creating governance and policy in all our communities, at the smallest community level to the highest levels, Supreme Court level.
It requires listening to each other and not just being in an echo chamber of our own opinions, which is a challenge right now. So I don't know, I guess if there's any hope, it's that, even events like this, they bring people together. They don't all necessarily have all the same opinions. They have many of the same interests and hobbies and kinks. And maybe through that commonality, it creates conversations about the other stuff that they disagree about, they disagree about, or they think they do. That's maybe the little string of hope that I can hold on to with the next generation.
Great question. That's a really good parallel actually to convention life too, because like you're just saying, there's a lot of people from a lot of different places and interests and everything that all interact together successfully. And with the systems that are in place in our real world, it seems like some of these systems are so old-timey that when you have people that have good, strong opinions and helpful messages, good solutions or at least ideas, there's powers at B that will kind of like stifle those. And that doesn't really happen so much in this environment, which is kind of a magical thing about these types of conventions. So we can take some of what we experience, learn, and contribute in these types of situations and put them into bigger picture real world situations. We would be much better off. It's just easier said than done, unfortunately. Okay, next question.
We're grown up. We're adulting. And also, why don't we do rapid fire? We got a rapid fire question, rapid fire. One word answers. Here we go.
All right, so I have a kind of a question.
Well, it has to be a one word question. You don't. Yeah, go ahead.
So I have a question about the general industry. Yeah. I know you guys said that you record a lot of times solo in like a booth. How often throughout your 30-year careers have you guys gotten with all the actors and actresses and been in a room and just done it all together, all live?
Yeah, I'll answer that. With prelay, where the animation is not done yet, it's usually and often all together, and that is way more fun and is probably easier for everyone in terms of even in the post and editing and like there's a jam. With dubbing, it is never all together, and so it's a real testament to the people who direct and who then edit it later, that they can make something seem like it was part of a whole story and then has a through line, even though it was recorded in pieces out of sequence.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Are you surprised by the insane popularity of DeathNote still to this day? It's been out for so long, and also, was there anyone that surprised you that was a true DeathNote fan?
Yes, I am surprised by the massive popularity of this series. Still to this day, it's surprising. I shouldn't be, because it's a great series, but it's always, I don't know, I think we always get that way, surprised with things.
Absolutely surprised, yes, and constantly surprised at just random people you meet on the street or random people that we recognize, celebrities who clearly have just discovered it or watched it way back when, or rediscovering it again with their kids. The way that it's sort of perpetuating itself is incredible.
I met a guy from the cast of Game of Thrones, and I was trying not to fanboy over this character. And then he asked, "What do you do?" And I said, "Voice stuff." He goes, "Oh, like one guy's it was like DeathNote, and he fanboyed over me. And that made my year.
Okay, so they are telling me that I don't cut you off yet.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm about to do
So listen up, yeah, we're still at our tables for like maybe another hour. If you have questions and want to come up and say hi, please feel welcome to do so before we skedaddle. And thank you, everybody, for a great panel.
Yeah, thank you.
Be careful. You're the clumsiest of us all, that's why.
I have them at the table. I know this. I know this.
like do something like yeah, that's a great job. I just have to be like, hey, let them go. Try to get the questions out.
On the next room, and we're VIP, getting up.
They make you go out there and come back in. So they don't.
No, we're with a medium.
Oh,
complete nerve authority.